Good afternoon. My name is Dale Rodriguez, and this is a Flabonga Monthrothacube. And with me today, I have Dave Norwell. Dave, sup?
Hi,
How's it going?
hi there. How are you doing? Yeah, good, good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for joining me. Do you know what I like about this show is, right? Like, we know each other relatively well. We've had jokes, we've had bants. But for the first 5 minutes, we're both going to be a little bit nervous. So we're both going to be a little bit on edge. We're going to be like very, very polite. And then it will slowly degrade into trash talking.
I'm looking forward to that bit.
Jokes aside, thank you for joining me, by the way. I know you're busy. I know you've got stuff to do. And you're currently in Edinburgh. Edinburgh.
Edinburgh, Edinburgh. Yeah, depends. There's a lot of Taylor Swift fans still around, so you're hearing some interesting pronunciations. Edinburgh, but we'll go for Edinburgh.
Oh, I can imagine Americans saying it very badly. Sorry, yeah. American peeps.
Yeah,
like trying to get them to say Worcestershire.
The source or the county?
Both. What are you doing in Edinburgh at the moment?
So I'm in London myself. But obviously, FreeAgent is still headquartered, and the vast majority of our staff are up here. So I tend to come up once a month and see everyone, see the sales team. We've got a big marketing offsite tomorrow as well. So yeah, it's just nice to be up amongst it and to sit in my office, which I don't often get to do.
Fair enough. Do you mind if I ask you a dumb question?
There's no such thing, but go.
No, this is pretty dumb.
Yeah.
Why is it a majority of the men in FreeAgent are either shockingly handsome or hench? Like, you all seem to be like just guys who work out all the time. What's that about?
Well, I think I'm getting old enough for that to be ironic. Ask my kids, they definitely wouldn't agree. And my wife probably to add into that. I think we're a lovely bunch. I think there's a lot of more beautiful people than me here, but no, I think I'd say because we're friendly, we're always smiling. I think that makes a difference. I think if you're friendly,
because I was say word on the street is like you have a pretty strict workout regime, right? Like even when you travel, even when you're like at Accountex and events, you still manage to squeeze in the workout. So what does your schedule look like?
Again, that's changed as I'm getting older. So it's as those of us who are not say over the hill, but approaching it, maybe with family and kids, it's a maintenance and slow the decline rather than anything else. But yeah, I'd still kind of train every day if I can. Generally,
weights, cardio, or both?
Both still, both. So I tend to do a bit of cardio and then some weights after. I guess the reasons for doing it have changed over the years, but I still do it. And there's
what you say the reasons have changed. So what was the original reason and what's the reason now?
So my background was a long time ago. How far do we go back on these, Dale? What's the
let's go 20 years.
Right? 20 years.
Let's go 20 years. Yeah. Let's go way back.
So way back. So yeah, I finished uni and then by a weird twist of fate ended up in an industry where that was quite mandatory to look a certain way. I did that for quite a while. Is that suitable for work?
Got it. You're a male stripper. Got it. Understandable. No judgment. I'm sorry. That was a bad joke. That's a bad joke.
I'll take it.
Thank you. Thank you for humouring me.
Yeah, along those lines, it was actually a career for me for a long time. And so obviously back then I did it for a functional and career purpose, but that's definitely not the case anymore. You don't have to mandatorily go to the gym at FreeAgent to work here.
Oh, it just seems like it because everyone's so good looking and swole, especially the dudes. They're all like in shape. I was like, oh, here's a question for you: who'd win in an arm wrestle, you or Tony Stevenson?
Nowadays, Tony, I would have thought. I've got really bad elbows. So well, on Tony, I reckon. Yeah.
As I say, time and tide wait for no man. How did you damage your elbows? Is that just like a long-standing injury, or just I hate to say it, is it just old age? Because my knee hurts, my right knee hurts often for no reason.
Yeah, it's just old
wear
age.
And tear.
Hip, back, elbows, just generally, it's just accepting that it is what it is. Some days are better than others. But
if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
So I'm 47 in 2 weeks. It's my birthday. 2 weeks. Mate. I'll be 47. So nearing the 50. I was kind of thinking,
Mate,
the mark.
Looking good for your age.
Oh, thanks, mate.
Oh, I need to give a shout out to someone who's viewing. For some reason, the comments aren't coming up on my screen, but
Yes.
Randy House has commented. He says, "What's this here sauce?" I think we're talking about Worcestershire sauce, and he asked the question, "What is the sauce?" Randy, it's a fermented fish-based sauce that has tamarind and spices in it. It's delicious, and I think most Brits like it. Right? It's got like a mild spice to it.
Yeah. Good.
It's quite a runny sauce.
Can't remember the last time I had it. I can't remember the last time I had Worcestershire sauce crisps, but not just the sauce.
I whack it on cheese on toast. It's pretty good for that.
Yeah.
Oh, Benjamin Morley's watching as well.
Oh, I bet.
Guy.
Hi Ben. How you doing?
Well, Ben. He's a good egg. He's a good egg. He's very good at throwing axes, by the way. I don't know if you've done that with him at all.
Yeah. Scarily talented at axe throwing. Yeah.
Sorry, I realised I've delved into all these personal, silly questions. I actually haven't asked you to introduce yourself. So could you just introduce yourself? Tell us where you work and what you do for work, please.
Yeah. Hi again, Dale. So my name's Dave. I'm a business development manager. Technically, is the role, or a manager of the business development team at FreeAgent. So I manage the team that look after the larger practices, accountancy practices, and help them deploy FreeAgent to their clients. So a smallish team, but relatively kind of increasingly important to FreeAgent. It's one of our big target markets at the moment. So never a dull day. And how we probably first came into contact, similar firms. So that's a day job. I'm a bit of a player manager, so I've still got my own clients. And then I look after the teams that look after those clients.
What do you prefer about your role, having engagement with your own clients or managing your team? Because they're two very different roles or aspects of the role, aren't they?
That's a really good question. I was chatting about this last night.
Oh, well.
To be honest, I always swore I never wanted to do management or be in management. I always preferred doing a job and being a bit of a lone wolf and doing my own thing. But obviously, with all of us, like career and everything else, that you take opportunities. And to be honest, I quite enjoyed it. It's a blend of both. I think for those of us that have kind of done jobs and then managed, I think having a set of clients and actually walking the walk and having to do what you're asking teams to do is a real strength to that. Although it can be a time drain, it's quite time consuming. I think you're always in the position where you're doing the same thing as your team is doing, and you're trying to demonstrate best practice. You're learning from them, they're learning from you. So I think there's a lot of, it was never meant to be like this, and it was more of an accident design, but it's actually worked out quite well. And I prefer both. There's days I prefer one over the other, I think, depending on whether it's a difficult client or a difficult team member.
I was going to say that's the answer I'd give as well. Just jumping on something you just said there in your response, you said something about best practice. I'm going to try and unpack that. So for all intents and purposes, your role is a sales role. Like, you're there to promote the company, promote the product, and get people to sign up. That's sales in general. What would you consider to be best practice within a sales role? Are there any kind of like tips or tricks or patterns or routines that apply to multiple roles if you're in sales? Because selling FreeAgent, for example, is different than selling a pair of shoes, and selling a pair of shoes is different than selling a car. But do you think there are certain things that go across sales in general that's best practice?
That's such a good question. And I guess I've been in sales a long time in different functions, with different products in different industries. I think there's commonalities to sales, and I think sales itself as an industry has changed. But I think some of the commonalities remain. I think the first one is the human thing. I think good salespeople are good relationship builders. I think, they're all the kind of stock phrase of people buy from people. I think is still the case. And I think if you look at the best salespeople, they'll tend to be very good at relationship management and both the good and the bad side of that. And also, I think when you're selling in something like accounts, it's really understanding what you're selling into, the kind of pains, the pitfalls, and really where they are. Because I think sometimes, especially in the software, we have I think both from an industry perspective, but also from a software perspective, we have sometimes idealized views of what we're selling into and what that looks like, and they're rarely the case. And I think it's go on.
Sorry, please continue.
And I think at its essence, the kind of successful sales role is the marriage of those two things, so the relationship management, along with having a really good idea of both your product but what you're selling into.
How is your CRM discipline these days?
Ooh, internally?
Internally, yeah.
Internally. So it's a really good question for a software company, right? In lots of ways where, I always think, like, with software process, people often say, what do you see as a tech forward company? And this goes across any industry. And I think if someone can walk in and most of the people in that organization can walk you through a client's journey or internal journey in terms of their technological touch points and what kind of what's used, then they're probably technology involved. So in terms of FreeAgent, we've got a very defined tech stack internally. I'm going to be absolutely honest, Dale, because that's what you want, right? And those that know me will be chuckling, is that, my use of internal technology is sometimes varied, I'll be honest. So for instance, I'll take one. Can we name check like providers here? It's not obviously not our provider, or do you?
Yeah, you can say providers if you want to. Yeah, as long as you're nice about them, generally speaking.
I will. Like, for instance, take Salesforce, which is obviously a big part of our organisation. It's one I've used in different organisations to different levels and with different successes. I was always scared of it. I'm getting to grips with it now and understanding it more. But it is one area that I do have to continually push myself to practice what I preach. There's your honesty.
Is this conversation going to go down in the CRM? Like, is this prospect client relation? Like, because is this?
Probably. I'll probably
sales right now, but
it's not sales. But then when we talk about sales, what is sales? It's building relationships, it's networking. I'll probably tag it as a meeting. Why not? Yeah, we'll do that.
A contact point. Yeah. That seems fair.
Yeah.
Get them stats up. I have to ask you a silly question now. Thank you for humouring me, by the way. Do you know what's really funny? It seems like you were surprised that I asked you good questions. Like, why are you so surprised?
I know you quite well, Dan. Now it's always I'm nervous about the next question. So it's always maybe a bit of relief that it was not a bad question. So
I'll be honest. When I understand your reservations, because I do. When we're not online, live stream, ask ridiculous and say ridiculous things. But I'm also well aware that we both have jobs, and I can't say ridiculous things. So don't worry, it's never going to be anything that's going to,
let's push
alienate you too much. Let's not push the envelope, because it could backfire on me horribly. Okay, silly question.
Yeah.
If you could eat one meat for the rest of your life, forsaking all others, what meat would you pick? Bearing in mind, if you pick one meat, that means you can never have any other product.
Okay, this question is interesting because I was actually born and brought up a vegetarian for...
Did not know that about you.
26 years. So 26 years I was full-on veggie, and then became a carnivore, partly because of the training, and then became a complete carnivore.
As in you did a proper carnivore diet?
No, as in just meat of all types. Going from eating no meat or fish to eating just everything. One meat... It's a really good question. I'll probably say venison.
Yeah, you'd pick deer. Bearing in mind, if you pick deer, you could never have bacon.
No,
you can never have beef.
No, I'd go for something edge. No, I'd go for venison for a few reasons. It's nutritionally brilliant, and I love the taste. So yeah, we'll go venison.
All right, cool. I like that. No one's ever picked a more gamey type meat before. Most people pick the standard ones like pork, chicken, or beef. Oh, that's cool. Thank you for humouring me on that one. Yeah. I'm gonna extend that one again. Yeah. Same question, but vegetable. What vegetable are you eating?
Ooh, corn on the cob.
Yeah. So you pick corn on the cob means you can never have any broccoli, you can never have any cauliflower, no runner beans, nothing.
No, I just think it's one of those. It's a feel-good vegetable. It just reminds me of barbecues and summer, and corn on the cob, and it's fun to eat.
Oh, comments are coming up again. Antonella, it's been a while. How are you doing? Long time no see. Like, Antonella's been like a supporter of this live stream since like day one. Yeah. She said I would go wild boar. You know what? I knew she'd pick something fancy. Like, she's a classic.
I'm gonna have to go and try that now. That's kind of inspired me. Wild boar. Love it.
Okay. We need to go back to business. Um, I got beef with your parent company, by the way. You know this, right? You aware of this?
No.
Because NatWest own FreeAgent, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
We are.
can you or someone at FreeAgent have a word with NatWest
Yeah.
about NatWest Bankline?
Yeah.
It is one of the top is in my top 3 most hated systems. It's terrible.
Interesting. So I can
Like if NatWest Bankline were a person, I might take a swing at it.
really. So if I was in that
Yeah.
West Bank line here, you'd be throwing the microphone.
Oh no, I can never do that to you, man. You're too nice. But like, if there's a personification of NatWest Bankline that didn't look like you, I might give it a slap.
You know what? Like, obviously, I'm technically a NatWest employee, right? So they're our parent company, independent subsidiary within the group.
Mm-hmm.
Banks are funny things. I've worked here for nearly 6 years and seen the acquisition and everything else, the goods and the bads. As with any organisation, that side, I think they get things right and they get things wrong, and then there's things in transition. So, in terms of the bank line itself, and obviously it's not my area of expertise. Are you talking about bank opening? What's it, account opening or inquiry? What is it? The main gripe?
If I want to export BACS information from certain financial packages, Xero, QuickBooks, et al.,
Yeah.
the BACS is supposed to be a uniform way of doing things, but Bankline's like, nah, fam, I don't like it. And it doesn't work. And it has to be a manual process to do it, which makes my life a lot harder.
Yeah.
This makes me very angry.
Yeah.
And my only advice to clients to use it is try using Metal instead, because it's a newer bank, even though it's still technically NatWest.
Well, the truth is, and it would be the same in any bank, right? Is that the underlying technology that a lot of these banks use is ancient, and that it services it from time to time. I think also we've obviously kind of touched on Metal there, that a lot of the banks are going through these transitional periods where they're looking at completely changing the touch points, communication points with clients, be it within the account opening or the support or anything else. So as with all these things, there'll be the rough and the smoother, but I can put my hand on my heart, Dale, and say I will have no influence over Bankline other than to pass it up in the general feedback chain.
I was going to say I'm hoping someone from NatWest sees this, but they're definitely not going to watch this. They've got better things to do, like running the economy. Going back a step, sorry, Antonella's responded again. So on the veg, she chooses aubergine or eggplant for American friends. That's the one vegetable she would eat.
I like it.
She's got tasty choices.
Yeah.
Marcus Batson's on there. He's from. No wait, I was going to say he's from Swoop, but he's not from Swoop. He's moved. Marcus, if you're still watching, let us know where you've gone to. Sorry, Marcus Batson. He chooses chicken.
Yeah.
He'd have it spatchcock roasted. All right.
I'm getting hungry now.
Fried, spatchcock or roasted.
Yeah.
When someone says spatchcock, you know that means they're fancy, right? Like most people don't spatchcock chickens. That's some chef level stuff.
Is spatchcock the slightly smaller chicken, or am I imagining that?
It's when you cut out the poultry spine.
Yeah.
And then you flatten it. So it's basically a flat chicken. You cut the back out and then push it down, and so you can cook it faster and easier. So I spatchcocked a turkey a couple of years ago for Christmas, and I cooked it on the smoker. Oh, it was delicious. It was the best turkey I've ever eaten. It was low and slow. I did it for like 10 hours. Some cherry wood smoke. I brined it before, and all other turkey is trash by comparison.
Oh man, I'll have to try that now. Cut it in half, slow bake it.
The amazing Zama. That's where Batson's working. Thank you.
Hi, Marcus.
But Marcus, it's not about you. It's not about Zama. We're talking to Dave about FreeAgent.
Is that synchronized?
His eyebrow game. His eyebrow game is strong. Some good eyebrows. Oh yeah, I just realised that there are people who, by the way, who watch this who aren't in the UK accounting space.
Yeah.
What is FreeAgent? I should ask you the obvious question. What is it? We're like 15 minutes, 20 minutes in, and I haven't asked you the really obvious stuff. What is FreeAgent?
So we're a cloud accounting product to help small micro businesses manage their finances in a timely and fun fashion. Is how I describe it. There's your elevator pitch.
Well, do you want to go one step further? I'll give you 2 minutes instead of one.
2 minutes.
What's more? All right, here's one. Why should I, as a business owner, not an accountant or a bookkeeper, why should I use FreeAgent? What's it going to do for me?
So I can use my personal story here, and this is
Please do.
This is true. So I was in a variety of software startups while doing FreeAgent, and generally in small, as anyone that's been in that game will know that if you're not the developer, then you do everything else within the startup, be it HR, hiring, advertising, whatever it is. And some of it was kind of the account side, more basic. So I've actually used all of the products, the major players in the game, so Sage, Xero, QuickBooks, FreeAgent, as an end user. And I'll never forget, so the company I worked for before this, I worked for them twice. I'll never forget the kind of CEO at the time, quite a small firm. Every time I went on FreeAgent, he'd say, I love this product, it's brilliant. And I'll never forget kind of going in and doing a few bits and just finding it really easy. So for me, and another element as well is that we were crap with things like VAT, paying it on top, all that kind of stuff. And for me, I can still remember those couple of elements that if your whole focus within your business is everything else apart from the bookkeeping and the finance side, which to be frank, with a lot of small businesses is the case, FreeAgent makes all that very, very easy for you. It's very intuitive. So for a small business, I'd say, like I was talking to my brother-in-law recently, so he's an electrician, like typical, not interested in software, not interested in technology, even though he's a millennial, on Tinder all the time. But other kind of technology, not so much. But
I love how you stitch him up on Tinder all the time.
He is. It's normalized now, right? It's just normal. But yeah, we got him onto FreeAgent. But the same again, like I think it just makes all those day-to-day grindy things easier, and it also is just economically sensible. So if you think about things like just raising your invoices, as for his example, when he leaves the premises, instead of on Word 3 weeks later when you can remember, if you've got your payment link in, then it's been paid as well. It's not only a headache saver, it's economically, I think, for small business, especially now when you're kind of talking about people with kind of cash flow management and that kind of thing. It's vital. To be honest, obviously I'm biased, and I think that FreeAgent is very, very good with that niche and does those things very well. But software in general, as a point, it's the business owner running their business better.
Okay. I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to try to lead something else in a minute. Is FreeAgent only available in the UK, or is it going to be elsewhere in the world?
So it is a UK-based product. We do have a kind of universal type license that you can use elsewhere. We do have that, but the 99.99% of the focus of the business, obviously, in terms of the complexities of any particular region in terms of tax laws and everything, I think one of our big strengths is that we only focus on the UK market. Unless NatWest come in with something and scrap the bank line and say we're going to go global, I think will always be the case.
The reason why I asked that is because one of my good friends in the comments, Raquel Flores, she taught me how to roll my R's, by the way. She is in Texas. She says hola amigos. She says hello from Texas.
Hi, Raquel.
And she says great to see you, Dale and Dave. Well, it's like 7 a.m. for her, so I appreciate her getting up and just jumping on, saying hello and listening to us talk about things. What was I going to ask you? Oh, it's going to be a silly question. Oh, okay, silly one. All right. What character, if any, in any film, franchise, or series would you kill if you could get away with it? I'm not talking about the actor or the person, because I've asked this question. People start talking about the actor. I'm like, well, calm down. But like, what character would it's just generally vexes you, annoys you, ticks you off? It's like, if that person were real, I actually give him a smack. Maybe not kill, because it kills a bit extreme.
This is where I lose any empathy. Like, people are going to hate me now because I've got someone straight away in my mind, and it's going to be divisive.
Don't hesitate.
Divisive. And I'll rationalize.
Go on. Well, bring it in. Come on, who is it?
Harry Potter.
When you say that, would it be you as a teenager giving him a smack, or you as a grown man giving him a smack? Because,
a bit of both. All
right.
Explain why. A bit of both.
Please.
I think, for me, so I've always been a bit of a nerd. I used to love books and escapism, and I remember when Harry Potter first came out, and there was this kind of massive, obviously, furore about it. And I'm a massive fan of things like Tolkien and stuff like that. Lord of the Rings,
Mm-hmm.
reread so many bloody times. I just remember just being like at the time I was a younger man. I was a very young man. I was angry. Now I felt disappointed and still feel unengaged with it. And the hype around it is just intense. I'll caveat all that by saying that both my boys now read and love it. So I think there's this weird thing where I've come to an acceptance that I'm probably wrong.
I don't think you're wrong. Hear me out. I think it's to do with your and my age, right? So I have never read a Harry Potter book. Reason being, it kind of came out. I was already a keen reader, by the way, like you. I like Tolkien and other fantasy series.
Yeah.
So I was already in reading, but I remember when Harry Potter came out, there was a concern in the UK that children weren't reading enough.
Yeah.
And it inspired an entire generation to pick up reading. But
Yeah.
you and I are a fraction older than that generation. So we were all, like, if you were already reading and liked fantasy, you didn't really read Harry Potter because you weren't excited by it. And you're right. It's not a terrible book series, but it's not the most intense of fantasy series is this.
Yeah. And also, I've spoken to I've put my brother-in-law up again. It's weird, isn't it? You should get commissions. So he's massively fit. His argument is always he doesn't like the films, but he really likes the books. So,
I mean, I've watched the films. They're not great in my opinion.
yeah.
Oh, by the way, if you're into fantasy generally, you should check out an author by the name of Stephen Erickson. He and his friend wrote the Malazan Books of the Fallen. My favorite book series by far. I've read it 4 or 5 times, and it's one of those epic. There's like 10 books in the main series, all like 1,000 pages minimum. It's ridiculous. The world is vast and intense. Great read. Raquel's hot on the comments today. She corrected me. First of all, it's 6:20 a.m. for her. So, oh yeah, British summertime. Clocks have changed, so it's an extra hour. Sorry, Raquel. The intensity of my question so early. Yeah, I actually asked you. That's a pretty deep question, isn't it? Who would you kill character-wise, not a real person?
I'm a pacifist, man, so I wouldn't kill him.
Raquel, I've never watched any of the Harry Potter nor Lord of the Rings. I may be an oddball. Yes, Raquel, you are an oddball, and I'd say this to your face. So it is what it is. Since you shared with me, I'll share with mine. So I'm also a sci-fi fan, right? Not a huge fan of Star Wars. So as a geek, I fail, but I love Star Trek.
Okay.
Yeah, not a huge fan of Star Wars, but I love Star Trek, right? Like I've rewatched The Next Generation. I've rewatched the original Star Trek. Anyway, there's a series called Star Trek Voyager, and the premise is neither here nor there. It's not important. But there's a character on it. His name is Neelix. He's an alien, and he is just annoying. Like I don't like him. He's very whiny. He's kind of controlling and manipulative. He's not funny, but he's supposed to be funny. I don't like him, and I'd give him a slap if he were real. Yeah. And
has that stayed consistent? You think these things change as you grow?
No, I still dislike him as a character.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Not a huge fan. What, do you still dislike Harry Potter, or would you still give Harry Potter a bit of a...
I'm always I don't know if everyone else is the same. I always, especially nowadays, like to question myself all the time about everything, but especially things like that. Like, why do I? Why is it when my youngest is walking around, he's got this, what's the hat called? The sorting hat?
The sorting hat. Yeah.
He's got a sorting hat. So he wanders around in his sorting hat. And I think if it's giving him that much pleasure, I should perhaps find a more moderate view.
Is it a talking sorting hat, or is it just a plain one? It actually talks.
Talks.
See, as a parent, I think I understand why you might find that annoying. Kids have noisy toys. Yeah. And noisy toys are really annoying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when they've got creepy voices.
Yeah, it is as well. It's the very
Do I ask this question?
Go on.
What house do you think? What house do you think you'd be in if you were in the Harry Potter universe?
Slytherin.
Yeah. Nice. I think I'll be Ravenclaw.
Yeah.
I like them potions. So you like Lord of the Rings? Do you prefer reading it or watching it? And do you have a favorite book in the series?
I've read Hobbit the most. I love the Hobbit. I prefer with all these things. I do like the films, but I prefer the books. I think I've read them at a particular time in my life where I was just doing anything escapism, and it was escapism. and I think you form an emotional attachment to these things. I do love The Hobbit. I think Lord of the Rings is vast as a book. The Hobbit is just, I find, a bit more contained, and I always had that. I don't know why, like some emotional attachment to Bilbo. I feel maybe there's a bit of him in all of us. I felt that character was just so interesting.
Yeah. I'm the same. I'm also a Lord of the Rings fan. You're right. Hobbit is my favorite of the entire
Really?
series.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it genuinely is. But I think for me, it's because I actually read it in school, and we actually read it and I actually enjoyed it as a story. It's one of the first books we read in school that I enjoyed, and continued to read it thereafter. And because it's the first one I read in the series, the one I'm most familiar with. But yeah, definitely my favorite. I want to ask you another silly question. It might be a little bit offensive. Do you think being good looking like yourself helps in a sales role? Mate, that jawline doesn't lie, neither do I.
You're buttoned
Look
up
at it.
today. What does it say? Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? I don't know. I generally don't think of myself like that, so it's a very hard question to answer. I generally know what I think. I'll be honest with you. I think like connecting with people and how you do that is really important. And I think that, for me, I rarely get to go out anymore.
That's because you're old.
Because I'm old, but I've got a couple of mates down in Brighton. So on Saturday night, I was out in Brighton, which is always a good night. And we were just in this club bar thing, and like we were kind of staging where we had our chats. We were kind of happy just having a drink, and there was this kind of girl just standing next to me, and she looked at our group and came up to me and said, "Oh, I assume you're a stag group." And I was like, "No, I'm definitely not a stag group." And we were quite a diverse group of friends. I kind of went through, and we just talked and like had this probably half an hour conversation. She was doing she was doing a doctorate in some kind of a global. Basically, the point of her doctorate was how do we organise economy and society in a more productive way than we currently do. And like immediately within this really weird setup of this club, we had quite a deep conversation. And I think when you go back to your point about sales, I think you talk about sales or relationship building. I think for everyone, it's finding in another person that connection you got with them, where your similarities, where your similar viewpoints are, and talking about them. I know it's a massively long question.
No, it's cool. I asked you a question, you answered. I asked you answered. Thank you. But do you know what's really messed up is when you told me what her dissertation was on and about how we could make the economy better. Do you know what my first thought was? Because I'm evil.
Yeah.
Start culling people.
There's a couple of political.
That's messed up.
There's some political parties for the next couple of months probably got that in a manifesto. I would have thought, no.
Well, I was going to say the last person that did that in 1940s was not a good person. So let's not associate ourselves with that kind of mentality or thinking. How do I dig myself out of this hole? That's a horrible thing to say. I'm hoping you can help me out here, but you're not just going to let me sink in it, aren't you?
I think, you know what, with going back to your point about sales and people, I think there's been a change in what I've seen. I think that kind of old traditional like transactional selling method of just going in, and in the old days I'd have come into you with my big pamphlet, whatever it is, brochures, and then we'd have. I think that method of selling is dying. I think people expect a lot more. That's why I remember when you sent the questions you about sales. Is sales dead essentially? And I don't think it is, but I think it's changed, and I think it goes back to the original question about what is it? You know, how do you get in? What's your hook? And I think it is clients expect more, as they should, right?
Yeah. I mean, do you mind if I share my opinion on it? Because I feel like sales has kind of gone full circle, right? So back in the day, before globalization, or before we could travel as much, even in our country, your local retailer or your local merchant was your main point of contact, and you got to know that grocer, that market, whatever it was that you needed, right?
Mm.
So people had that personal thing. Then with the advent of radio and technology, companies did some crazy mind tricks on all of us and started doing marketing. And marketing is evil. No, I'm joking. It's good stuff, but it became less personal and more about getting the message and the image ingrained in you. And then we've all gotten kind of saturated by marketing. It doesn't really work as much anymore. And as you said, it's now gone back to the personal. It's not like, here's my stuff, here's my brand in your face. It's like actually people want to talk to somebody, feel like they're heard, and then have some kind of relationship. So 100% agree with on that one. With your sales relationships, have any of them maintained after you've left employment? So because I've had this, right? So I've worked in sales roles before, and there were still some people that I talked to that were my previous customers that we actually became not just colleague, not just customer supplier relationship friends. We actually kind of became friends. So has it ever happened to you where you're still in contact with people that you don't really work for or service anymore, but you still kind of get on because you built that relationship so well professionally?
That's a really good question. I think because my previous to FreeAgent, my 10 years was shorter and it was more project based, probably not, although I'm still in contact with a few. I've exchanged LinkedIn messages. With this job, 100% there's people I've met a lot that, it's transitioned to friendship and time poor people, we all have not a huge amount of time, but there's definitely people that I've met, clients now that 100% if I left FreeAgent today, I could call them next year and go for a drink with them, because you do reach that kind of
nice
relationship. And I think, with I think especially when you're working with bigger clients and the bigger client, bigger projects, I think you have to have that. I think you have to have a proper relationship with your supplier, with your project manager, whoever it is you're in contact with. Because I think at the end of the day, you need to care. You need to give it. Can I swear on here or not? No.
You can swear as much as you like, man. Yeah.
You have to give a shit. You do really genuinely have to. What you're doing, whatever you're doing, you have to give a shit about what you're doing. And I think that entails having a proper relationship with that person you're working with. Time will tell.
Honestly, thank you for sharing that, man. What advice? Because I've been in the industry roughly the same amount of time as you, about 5, 6. No, wait, hold on. Yeah, 5, 6 years, maybe a little bit longer. Right, but what advice would you? I've seen good sales and bad sales from fintech providers, financial technology providers. What do you think makes a good financial technology or fintech salesperson, as opposed to some of the bad ones that missed the mark?
Well, I think the whole transactional selling thing is just out the window from the start. If you go in there with just a number and a spreadsheet and how many licenses you want to sell, you're done and dusted. I think the key points, you've got to know your own product, strengths and weaknesses. I think you really need to have that grip, and I still think you have to be within a company a long time to really appreciate that. I think you've also got to make the effort to understand the industry at the first level, which I still think people, because our industry and accountancy, and it's not just accountancy, it's other. I've worked in the legal kind of sector before, and it's the same there, but it's a massively complex industry. To understand that, but then within that, most importantly, is to understand where the client, your practice, in my case, is with where they sit. And the best the best relationships are formed when there's honesty on both sides. So we all know that there's smoke and mirrors, like product side and client side. When you meet in the middle and go, right, this is what we're doing well, and this is what we can really offer, but this is what we need to improve. And practice side is like, we know we've got the holy grail of digitization, but we know we're kind of here with it, and these are the gaps we need to. When that kind of happens, I think then you get kind of a really good base to sell, or however you want to call it. But you have to have all those bits meet up, and within those, it's quite a few skill sets. You've got to have an analytical mind. You've got to have a relationship building mind. You've got to be brave, I think, as well, because you've been on the other side more than me, but I bet you've had many people come into you and say, our product is absolutely perfect. And not only that, it's going to be your holy grail to everything, and all you need to sell, that approach, I'm sure. And you probably discount them the second they start saying that. When you get someone that goes and goes, right, I think we're doing this really well, and this has worked well in the past, and this is what we need to look at. I think it's that. Then you start going, actually, I do it myself with salespeople. I can give an example of what I thought was a brilliant salesman quite recently.
Please do.
So we were, my wife and I went to this quite fancy farmers market thing. Like, you know, like you get all up food stalls and everything. And I know you're a foodie, so, and they're really good. And obviously within that, you get people selling to you. I'm the type of person, I'll never emotionally buy generally. Not really. I'm much more pragmatic, and I'll go and get it off the internet or something. And we went to one of these, I won't name the company, but we went to one of these farm to door kind of operations where they farm locally and they send the food to your door. Yeah. And the guy was young. He was probably, I reckon, early 20s. He'd worked on the farm, so he knew the operational side, everything went on there. He transitioned through another element, I think, in the kind of back office through it, and then he was doing sales. So he'd kind of gone through every stage of the business. And he's kind of, the mastery of his domain was second to none. But he also didn't really sell it. He was like, look, I'm kind of confident in what we do, and this is what we do, and this is, you know, I've got every faith in it. And he was asking lots of questions about me, and it was obviously the kind of health stuff came out straight away. And he was like, oh, well, you might be interested in this. You might not, but you might be, and that's that. And then at the end, he did this thing where it's almost like a proper anti-sell. And he was like, almost went as far as to say, you probably don't want, it's a subscription. It's quite a lot of commitment, understand, like, you know, you got to keep picked up on the children, and then obviously got kids. And he said, but, you know, in the future might be one of the things you think about. And I signed, I took the membership. And I just went, and I said to my wife, I said that, and actually went back in the end. I just went back to him and said, look, I don't mean saying, but I just think you were brilliant. Like what you did. He was like, oh, I said, no, honestly, genuinely, I come into contact with a lot of salespeople, and that was as good as it gets. And I never buy, and I just bought. So yeah, I think he had all those different elements. He understood his own stuff. He was interested enough in me to get my hooks. And in the end of the day, I didn't try and sell it, which is interesting, because that worked. But
I think like the thing I picked up on that as well is like, and this is something that I often tell people, is like really good salespeople, like you've given like 5 or 6 different elements there. So I hope people are watching and taking notes. The thing that I always say is like salespeople who are good, they invest in the customer or the prospect, and they ask questions. I think you mentioned that he asked questions, and the fact that he picked up on what you said, saw that you had kids, all these things and you made it about you. I think some of the best salespeople are the ones who ask questions. They qualify, and they make sure that when they ask the questions, they make sure they're properly listening.
Yeah.
Which sounds ridiculous because we can all hear, but sometimes we don't all listen. And even the best salespeople don't do it 100% of the time. But yeah, that's my takeaway on that. Thank you for that, by the way. That was some bomb level knowledge. Thank you.
I feel I have no knowledge.
In true my style, I've got to make it a little bit silly again. I'm going to call out one of your colleagues. Yeah. Where is Kirsty Mitchell? Where is she right now?
Oh, she's in the building somewhere. Oh, actually, no, she might be able to be with Kirsty tomorrow.
Because she commented and she was like, I'm going to watch Dave on FM and it's going to be hilarious, and I'll make comments, and she's not even here. I can't see her, can't hear her. Like, what's
Kirsty is massively busy all the time. I guarantee she'll watch it back if she can get the recording. I'm always nervous. Like, I don't know if you find this, like when you present in front of a stage full of people, you get a bit nervous. I always get most nervous when I'm in front of colleagues, funnily, more than clients, more than audience.
I don't get nervous doing the live streams, which is like weird. I don't know why. I do get nervous public speaking. As I've shared.
I do. I do.
Yeah. I wonder why that is. Do you think you get nervous in front of colleagues is because you think they might know more than you? Because I think that's where it comes from me. Like I know with clients, I'm usually the expert in the room.
Yeah.
But when it's other people who do the same role as me, I don't want to look silly and say something that someone can call me up on. I think that's my thing.
I think that imposter syndrome is there in all of it. I think with your colleagues, again, it goes back to at FreeAgent, we've all been here quite a long time. And there's quite I feel like responsibility to help and to make sure you're delivering the best. And some of the pressure is, are you giving people the best information? Are you helping them in the right way? I think that's quite a pressure. It probably stems from that more than that they know more, because I'm long in the tooth enough to know that, you know, there's people in my team that know the product better than me. You know, that's just the way it is. And I'll know other stuff than them. I think that's, if we're honest, there's always those, you have your strengths and your weaknesses. But no, for me, it's always the pressure of wanting to do best for people, I think, which is unique to where you work.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a question I think you may have already answered in previous questions, but I just want to kind of maybe summarize it. What advice would you give to a younger person starting their career in sales? Well, what skills should they build up on?
I think the first thing would be to not be afraid to bounce around a little bit in your early stages. I think obviously, people often, and I think there's much more people transition between jobs are much more now. And I think at least in the beginning, there's a strength to that. Like going back to the original question of my previous career, I was quite lucky in that I in a similar way fell into software because I knew someone at the time that was doing SDR work on the phone, and they said, "I think you'd be good at this because you could talk." Like, come and try and sell.
What's SDR work?
So yeah, for the uninitiated, sales development rep. So it varies from organization to organization, but in that particular firm, I did it a long time ago. It was basically on the phone, talking to owners of businesses and booking appointments. Well, basically soft selling the product and then booking appointments for an account manager to go and do the deal. So I was quite lucky, I think, and that I've probably been lucky a lot, but I think a lot of it is who you end up working beside. So in that organization, I worked alongside some brilliant people, but generous people in that they gave their time quite easily. And if you showed you were willing to put yourself out there, they'd give it back. So I think for young people, I think it's not being afraid to move a bit at the beginning, and then to really like focusing on people that you can see doing well and look what they're doing and learn from them. I think there's obviously a lot of value in doing the sales training course, and I've done loads over the years, and with everyone you pick something up. But I'd say the most valuable stuff I've ever got is from people I've worked next to, watch them and seen what they do and to emulate it. So yeah, learn from peers, learn from other people. And the final one, probably going back to the imposter syndrome. I think still, as human beings, we're terrified of being made to look silly. And the truth is, like in any career or anything else, I think you have to go to that stage where you're going to look silly a few times and you're going to make an idiot of yourself. But I think being brave and accepting that's part of the process is another thing. Otherwise, you just get, and I think it's a bit societal at the moment, you get this crippling anxiety to be perfect all the time that can translate into a career as always having the opposite. It's like go and make mistakes and learn from them.
No, thank you for sharing. I'm tempted to ask you a mean question, like really mean.
I think we're close enough now, Dale.
Why does the FreeAgent UI look so much like the Zero UI?
Oh, that's a great question, isn't it? This is about to lose my job, isn't it?
Like the most recent demo you gave to me, I looked at it, I was like, first of all, that looks really familiar. Second of all, it looks really good. I'll give the FreeAgent team that. But I was like, that's really similar. Even the color blue is really similar.
There's a few stories that you could go into probably that I won't, but I think there's a truth to that. And often, but I'll make no bones about it, and I've said it in public on stages that I'm probably the older get as well. And especially in our industry, like people talk about software agnosticism or being, looking at things. I truly believe it. Like, I really do. Like I've seen the other side of it. I think we're emerging at the moment in a really interesting point. And I've got friends in other industries saying the same. Like in verticals like law and stuff. I think we're coming to this point where the kind of early people ahead of the curve can really see it now. That we are looking at now properly what is the best tool for the client or the part of the process, whatever it is, and how does that all fit together, rather than we got one tool that does it all, or we got one tool that then acquires stuff to try and do it all. So I think, yeah, you're probably right. Like, when I do demos and when I go into implementations, if the practice is a zero user, then they will draw that parallel. My take on it is brilliant, because we got these two, then generally we'll be using two tools in the practice if they're doing that. So there's a familiarity with that. That's great. So you're not going into a product thinking, oh God, this is all a bit odd. So if it made you feel like that, That's good. Good. I'll take it.
Fantastic answer. Thank you for humouring me, because I'm aware that was a very, very loaded question.
You know what you said at the beginning offline, where can we go? Like, and I'll put my own neck on it, that I think, you know, the reality is when I go into practices and sell FreeAgent, consult, whatever you want to call it, it's not just us that are there anymore. It's not just a product. There's a suite of products. And I think a lot of the more advanced questions about how do all these products fit together? What's the workflow? It's not, do I use A or do I use B? So in fact, you know, using those two products together, brilliant. What's the client look like? How do we segment? What is it? You know, I think we have to get to that point. It always feels about, everyone gets nervous. I've noticed this, and there's still obviously everyone's competitors, right? So there's always an element of, oh God.
Yeah.
But I'm getting more the other way. Like, I was in a meeting with a colleague of mine on Friday with a big firm, and we sat down with them, and they got out their tech stack workflow, and it was brilliant because we talked about the client journey through that, what it all looked like, where our product fit in, where other products fitted in, and it was just brilliant. And I think we've got to get to that quicker. So no such thing as a difficult question. I think it's a great question. And if you felt like that, then the demo works, right?
Fair play. Is it hard selling a product that is essentially free?
That's another great question.
To make it harder?
That's a great question.
I asked some pretty good questions.
No, it's a good question. So obviously for the uninitiated, so obviously owned by NatWest. So anyone with a NatWest business bank account with Metal or RBS gets FreeAgent free. Now, boom. For me, always it was great, but there was always a bit of a but, which is what that tends to lead to sometimes is people using it who aren't suitable for it, maybe because it's free, like a bit of a false economy. I'm a multinational manufacturing business.
I've seen it. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it with other softwares. We've got clients who have gone, let's migrate from one software to, I'll name it, to Xero. Yeah. And as much as I like Xero, I've had to go to the client, that's too small for your business. And they ignore me. And they think it's going to save them money. And it does, because the subscription's like, 40 quid a month as opposed to the grand a month they need for their ERP. Yeah. But then after like 6 months, everything's falling over. Sorry, I hijacked your response. I apologize. No, you're right.
Well, exactly that.
Yeah, I see it all the time.
So I think what we've done, especially in my team, interestingly as well, the conversation is slowly moving away from that offering. So obviously for a lot of, especially with MTD and the digitization of the smallest clients, there is a value to be had from having a free business bank account in Metal's case and free FreeAgent. There's no doubt about that, and it is a real draw. What I'm noticing with the bigger practices is that it's now baked into the commercial cost of buying FreeAgent, because you and I know in the technology, and I'll say for not just FreeAgent, with most products, there's an absolute business rationale for good technology and the cost therein of that. So for our teams, at least now, it's almost like a bonus sometimes. It's like, what's our commercial price? And then obviously we get all these ones free because they're with NatWest or they have Metal accounts. So I think the landscape is changing. I think that's partly due to the industry as well. Finally, seeing the value in products and the software subscription fee being vastly outweighed by any efficiencies and anything else you can get. So it sometimes is an initial conversation bit, like we sometimes get, well, we thought it was all free, or or they'll only want to talk about the free bit, but that conversation does generally evolve once you've kind of got in under the bonnet a little bit.
Fair enough. What's the most enjoyable thing about your role?
So there's a few elements that FreeAgent, obviously I'm going to big them up a little bit, not in the sense of the product to the market necessarily, but in terms of a company. Like, I've been around the block quite a bit and seen lots of things. And like, I go back to the NatWest thing, like FreeAgent is saying, we don't get everything right, but internally, most people work, I've struggled to find a better place to work. I think there's a real, and I hope this comes across actually, there's an honesty about the company, both in the way we do business, but the way they treat their employees. If you look at the sales team specifically, I think there's loads of us. I mean, I'm on nearly 6 years. There's someone in my team on 5. There's another one on 7. There's a lot of people that have been here a long time, and you don't do that unless the company treat you well. So they know how to really look after their people. So that's the first bit for me. The second bit is I've always been a massive people person. Whatever I've done, I love meeting people. You know, I think there's obviously you probably found it, mate, a preconception of accountancy. It's one of those, I guess, industries where there's preconceptions about the people that are in it. But like with everything else, the amount of varied, interesting, funny, highly intelligent, lovely people that I've met in this job has been second to none. And I obviously include yourself in that, mate. I think that
Oh, thank you.
well, it's true. It's like, you know, I think the second bit for me is always the ability to meet really good people.
Cool. Thank you for answering, and thank you for humouring me. We've been talking for almost an hour, by the way, and I honestly feel like I could speak to you for another hour, but we've both got stuff to do. So before we wrap this up, 2 questions. 1, do you have a final nugget or word of advice you want to go out on? And 2, do you have any questions for me? You can reverse the order of those questions.
So the nugget, is it specific? How general? So your audience is quite general. How broad?
It's pretty general.
Is it? Okay, I'll take a stab.
General.
I'll take a stab in the dark with my general one. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think we live in interesting times at the moment. I think I was having a chat with one of my team last night. We were out for a drink, and I think for a lot of people, there's a disconnect. And I think the irony is that technology is somewhat to do with it. And I think you kind of see the best of both sides of it, right? Which is technology is an amazing thing, but we've got to be careful. People often say, like with the accountancy thing, you know, it's going to take our jobs. It's gonna, and I don't think that. But I think we have to be aware, both in the work world, so my world, but also socially, how the interaction of the personal and the technological is working, and how we can not ignore that intersection, because I think there's some great things that can happen in there, but I think there's also some scary stuff. And I think even having chats like these, like where you get the human face behind what you do and the people, I think it's really important. So I think I've deleted a couple of apps off my phone recently. So I think for me, ironically, it's how much do we use technology and what do we want to use it for? I think people, whatever they're doing, should be aware of it.
That's a strong message.
Yeah, well, I believe it, like, especially as a dad and as everything else. I think we need to be a bit careful. But that's not to say that obviously technology can do amazing things, because it can as well.
Yeah, like a really cool live stream. One guy in the southeast of England, the other guy in Edinburgh. It's pretty dope. Do you have any questions for me, by the way?
I'd love to.
Say no.
I've got loads. No, I've got loads.
Go on.
I think for me, like, interesting. We'll bring it back to our vertical a little bit. For me, obviously, I always see the one side of which is the vendor thing, kind of going in and seeing clients. From your perspective, if you were to guess, and it's pretty broad brush strokes, right? Well, how do you see our technology and our industry, the relationship between that and the development of the tech stack? What do you think the next few years holds for the accountancy profession with technology? And
I would be remiss if I didn't mention AI. It's a big thing. Most people are using it to supplement or enhance their non-accounting function. So they're using it for scheduling. They're using it for presentation preparation. Very few people are using it for accounts and bookkeeping just yet, but it is there. So that's something that's coming up, and a lot of people are using it more. As you mentioned, there's this kind of 2 different camps between consolidation. So I've seen apps that used to do one thing very, very well, and then I do 4 or 5 things. And the issue with that is, if they only do one thing really, really well, and they add 4 or 5 things on, if they don't do those 4 or 5 things really, really well, kind of pointless. But I am seeing some providers do that. They've got a more, sorry for using the buzzword, holistic term, and it's the nature of the product has changed drastically. I think, as you mentioned before as well, customers, so accounting firms and by proxy our clients, have been oversold historically. I think there was a rush in terms of fintech apps, and that's kind of slowed down. Like I say the bubbles burst, but it's almost like the 90s .com boom where everything was like, ooh, fintech. It's slowed down a little bit, and the customers are being more savvy. So as you mentioned, we're not just going on the hype. We're just, people are being more purposeful with their purchasing, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I do also think, I know it's a cliche, I also think it's a good thing that there are still competitors out there. Like, you're very honest. You're like, we're not competing with Zero. Zero aren't competing with FreeAgent. They're two different products for two different parts of the market, and they're pushing each other to be better because there's some overlap, but there's also some differences. So that's kind of a long answer to your question, but that's my observation of tech and fintech and accountancy and bookkeeping.
Yeah.
AI is a big game changer. Not many people are using it, and fintech has kind of consolidated a little bit more.
Yeah, agree.
Kevin Lord joins just at the end, by the way. Like literally, like 2 minutes. Like we've gone an hour. He just literally comes in, says your name, smiley face, with a blowing a kiss, because he was on a couple of months ago as well. He's cool, talking about AML stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
On that note, I'm going to say honestly, January, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for sharing your insights. I know you joke. I know you're a humble guy, so you don't think your insights were amazing, but they were. They were fantastic. I'm going to love you and leave you, man. I'm going to hit end stream. We're going to roll out, and we'll be done. So thank you, man. And thank you for people who watched and commented.
Cheers,
Gangster.
Thanks, mate. Take care.